Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome back to AI and the Future of Work. This is your host, Dan Turchin, advisor at Insight Finder, the system of intelligence for IT operations, and CEO of PeopleRain, the AI platform for IT and HR employee service. Thanks again to all of you, our listeners, for making this one of the most downloaded podcasts about the future of work. If you enjoy what we do, please like, comment, and share in your favorite podcast app. And we'll keep bringing you great conversations ad-free. We read all of your feedback. Please keep it coming. We've been discussing the technology behind remote work lately. Matt Compton from Philo shared what they're doing to create virtual workspaces. And this goes back a ways, but Jordan Husney from Parable discussed the meeting copilot for managing check-ins. This goes way back to season 1. It was actually episode 32. We also met Brian Talaby, CEO of Ahura, which accelerates the learning process to help employees upskill and reskill faster as preparation for increased automation in the workplace. Well, today's guest is doing something similarly bold, reinventing the learning process. As an educator, I need a better way to disseminate my content and keep my remote learners engaged. I can no longer rely on traditional textbooks and whiteboards or even live labs. All of that needs to be reimagined. Well, Dr. Panos Siozos, founder and CEO of LearnWorlds, believes they can not only be replaced, but dare he say, improved. Dr. Siozos founded LearnWorlds in 2014 and recently raised a $32 million round from Insight Partners to execute on his bold vision. He has a PhD in educational technology and spent time as an educator before advising the European Parliament and eventually becoming an entrepreneur. Today, we'll get perspectives from Panos on how interactive online courses expose content to every learner on the planet. More broadly, we'll hear about the future of tech-enabled education. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome our very first guest from Cyprus, Dr. Panos Siozos, to the podcast. Let's get started by having you share a little bit more about your background and how you got into this space.
Hi, Dan, and thanks for having me on your show. I'm super excited to be here. I and my co-founders, we started as researchers. So we met more than 25 years ago studying computer science, and then the three of us started working as researchers, like postgraduate studies, towards a PhD in educational technology. So eventually I got my PhD in computer assisted assessment. So we built our first platform in year 2000. But obviously we were doing that in a research setting. So we were creating platforms and other educational tools. We were testing them with students, publishing a few papers, appearing into conferences, but we didn't have the skills or the push from somebody to just go out and create commercial products. So we spent the best part of the first decade of the century by being researchers, like in an academic setting. But we always had this itch of for going out and providing the state of the art of e-learning at the hands of actual educators and users who on a massive scale could benefit from these kinds of tools. So there was a huge disconnect from the quality of the state of the art of e-learning that we were studying and researching and testing, and how crappy, I would say, in many cases, the actual products that people were using out there were. So we wanted to bridge this gap. So after a few years, after after completing our PhD studies and doing further work, we just got together and say, okay, now is the time. We were seeing that educational technology was becoming even more relevant. So at that point, we identified a niche for platforms that would combine e-learning with e-commerce, like giving to actual trainers and training businesses the opportunity to not only create super engaging and interesting online courses with amazing user interface, but also give them the means to monetize this content and be able to sell directly, so direct to consumer e-learning, be able to create their courses and not rely on a large distributor to share those courses, but be able to bring their own audience and start selling. So we launched the business. We started working on the business on the platform in 2012. We spent a couple of years in stealth mode, like perfecting the platform. We were very much, perfectionist researchers and wanted to build the amazing platform before showing it to even one user. And then we founded the business back in 2014. And what we offered really coincided with lots of changing trends in not only in education but also in e-commerce. We've seen in the past few years, and this definitely has been catalyzed totally by COVID, that people are lots of training happens now outside traditional academia and outside traditional educational systems. There is amazing content creation happening out there by creators, like the passion economy is flourishing, amazing people from all walks of life who have great content to share, but also looking for ways to monetize their content. So the platform that we offer, this combination of state-of-the-art, amazing, super user-friendly course platform, where super easily you can create an online course and share it with people, with the monetization layer, resonates very much with what is happening around us. And obviously, COVID really, all this terrible situation really skyrocketed the demand for these kinds of services, giving the opportunity to people to connect their content with audiences all over the world.
Oftentimes it's a challenge to migrate from an academic or research background into entrepreneurial endeavors, because the speed, the kind of agility that's required in startup land often contradicts, like you said, kind of the predilection for perfectionism that is rewarded in academia. How did you manage that transition?
That was, I guess, the most life-threatening situation we faced as a business. We were researchers and very rigorous researchers, but it also happened through our experience in the university, participating in research projects and creating actual products, that were also amazing engineers. But even a good researcher or an amazing engineer doesn't convert easily to a great business person. So obviously, we did lots of things the other way around. So we didn't do any customer development or verifying the need for the platform. We just had in mind the best possible platform that we could create. I mean, we had some ideas about how this could be monetized, but we were lucky to survive this. Probably we were lucky enough or persistent or dumb enough to stay alive, I guess, throughout this period, be able to deliver a great product. And once people started seeing the product, they started giving us ideas and say, okay, that's amazing, but like, why are you, initially we even tried to create our own content, and we discovered that we were like two unknown quantities, so we couldn't attract any great content creators. We initially wanted to target, celebrity trainers or developers who would use our platform to promote their content. We discovered that we didn't have the money or the funds or the let's say the profile to attract them. Then we started creating our own content, and very soon we discovered how difficult this is. And this is where our perfectionism again almost killed the endeavor. But once people started seeing the platform, they started demanding to use it, like in different settings. Hey, can I use this to teach photography? And can I use this to teach yoga? Can I use this to teach digital marketing? So I think at that point, when we started having actual customers, we realized that we don't know anything about doing business, so we better learn fast as we can. And this is, I guess, where our research background helped us to understand that we know nothing about this subject, but we have to do rigorous study and learn fast and cover all the bases. So we started listening to the market, adapting the product very fast to what the market demanded. In certain cases, I have to say that we even had to downgrade the platform. We had built lots of complexity that from an academic point of view made sense. And obviously we knew, and we still know customers that need this functionality, let's say, but it's not for everyone. So in some cases, we had to take a step back, provide an easier platform in some cases with less functionality in certain areas, until that point where we would be ready to give them the full thing, or we would find in front of us the right customers who would benefit from that. And one example I have here is we've built into the platform, although we're not here to talk about the actual product, but let's say we have an interactive video editor within the platform where you can just get a linear and sometimes even boring educational video. We're all guilty of that, so not every subject can be super exciting. And with just a few, you can add layers of functionality on top of your video. For example, you can add an interactive quiz in a fairly ordinary video, and there you can provide an amazing learning experience to the student. But perhaps we had brought it a bit earlier, let's say, than the market could understand. Now it's much easier, now that people are looking again into complex projects and they want to enhance this interactivity. Online courses suffer from very low completion rates. In some cases, the average is like 15%. And this is where now, after we solve, let's say, the commercial problems, this is where the e-learning potential that we built into the platform really can shine, and where people can understand what the options we offer them, so they can build amazing learning content. Once you have amazing learning content and you get the engagement of the users and you have satisfied learners, this is where you also have satisfied repeat customers. So we first have to solve the one in order to enable the second one.
So it feels to me a little bit like LearnWorlds is maybe like a white label version of like a masterclass.
Yes.
If that's a reasonable analogy, maybe could you take us through an example of a creator that is making really good use of the platform, just kind of end to end, how they've published their content?
Yes, you put it great. We are a white label version of Masterclass. So effectively, any person from an individual creator to a large training organization, they can get their own white label Masterclass. Or otherwise, we put it from an e-commerce perspective as a Shopify for online courses, because you get your own property, you get your own website, you bring in your own audience. So we don't have a ready-made audience of a few million people to contribute, but we give you all the bells and whistles and marketing tools that you can use to grow your audience and sell your online courses. And I have to say that every day we are amazed by the kinds of businesses that people build online and by the new business models we discover. Anything from like one of the schools that runs on the platform is it has more than 250,000 users. It's an amazing online school for data science and data analytics, and it's a multi-million-dollar business that runs entirely on top of LearnWorlds. So effectively, they have their own Coursera, and they're actually competing against Coursera because the kind of certificates that they offer are really accepted and trusted and valued in this job market for, let's say, a specific country. Other cases. One case I remember, an online trainer who used to travel a lot, to do internal training within large corporations the size of Microsoft, Coca-Cola, BMW, Mercedes, whatever. They used to travel a lot. They were fed up with being on a plane every single week, traveling from business to business. They decided to create initially a complementary version of that training within an online platform, and this gradually replaced most of their traveling. So when COVID hit, they were already ready with a platform where they could sell courses. And one case I remember from this course, from one of their courses, they were teaching. One of their classes was about conflict resolution within a corporate setting. So they had a few scenarios playing out, like how like a boss interacts with an employee and they have an argument, and they converted this into an interactive experience. So you had the video playing with our platform. So you had the video playing, and then the video paused. A question popped, like two people arguing, the question popped up, the video paused. So how do you respond in this situation? And then you had, branching, and based on the answer, you would see a different version of the scenario playing out. So this can really create a very engaging, a very immersive environment for students. So the more time they spend, the more happy they are, and obviously how the work environment has developed now with remote working and the trends for learning anytime, anywhere, being able to control your time and attend the class from while you commute, while you are at work, while you are at home, while you are from a mobile device, being able to offer these kinds of content from especially from a mobile device really matches the way people now work and learn. So we have a great fit there. I think it's a confluence of reasons, of changes, all these trends that were happening behind the lines that really now have coalesced into a perfect storm for e-learning. So it's not just about COVID, obviously. Remote working is already a thing. We were a remote first company since 2014. Nomad workers escaping 9 to 5, taking control of your time, of the way creating, trying to create side projects and side income and passive income. All these things have really come together into online learning and selling of online learning, and this was really a perfect storm for this field.
So the experience of learning a new skill is such a fundamental part of the human experience. And I think you could argue, I mean, these patterns of how we learn stuff go back hundreds of years at least, perhaps even, to the Socratic method, right? One of your countrymen. And all of a sudden, we have access to these technologies that really upend everything that we thought we knew about how learning takes place. How do you feel about that? I mean, is that an appropriate way to think about the magnitude of what you're in the process of doing?
This is a very interesting question. First of all, Socrates himself was very suspicious in some cases of novelty. Although he was an innovator himself and he got poisoned for it, there is one of the Socratic dialogues where he's very suspicious of writing, because up until writing appeared, people could memorize, the epics of Homer, and they could recite thousands upon thousands of verses. And he was very suspicious about writing because people will start forgetting things when they write things down. Imagine how he would feel about having, a mobile device, and I don't know, probably I remember probably just a couple of phone numbers, while 20 years ago I could remember probably 100. So he would be suspicious. On the other hand, we have seen that the industrial model of education that we have been we all experienced, where you have a school which is effectively a factory of knowledge, and you have young people, raw materials, where you put them in the class, you feed them with knowledge, and then out the other side you have a slightly improved, hopefully, version of this person. It's definitely not perfect, and however, it has managed to educate a few billions people, like in the past 1.5 century at least, when it's working mostly, at least in the industrialized world. So how can this be enhanced with education, with educational technology? This is one of the things that we are trying to enhance. Even a small improvement can really have massive consequences when you apply it in a global context. So during the COVID lockdowns, the height of the lockdowns, 1.7 billion kids were affected by lockdowns while attending school, and most of them had some kind of access to remote education. It could be as bare bones as a book that they were able to get at home, or as advanced as remote tablets and like WebEx, Zoom, whatever, all those apps that people were using. So they have definitely been exposed to all these new methods. As we can imagine, attending an online course or a remote session or something is something that has been like deeply like etched onto our skin now. So this is something that will definitely be we will be seeing more and more in the next few years. And people have realized that there is lots of potential coming with educational technology, from being able to provide to everybody in every continent access to amazing content. Yes, it would be great if we all of us could attend a classroom by a top Stanford professor about AI, but we've seen that that was also the promise of MOOCs. If we can partly replicate that, not perfectly, but in a quite immersive way, and give access to the same content to millions of students around the world. So the potential of educational technology was always in the past few years a revolution waiting to happen, always 5 years in the future. So first it was the promise of computers, and then it was the promise of the internet, or the promise of the CD-ROM, or the promise of a new technology, of faster video, whatever. But I think now the maturity of all these technologies is already there, at least to give you to give to everybody in the world with a mobile phone and an internet connection access to amazing content, and empowering all these people. And I'm sure that in the next few years, whilst we see AI, VR, augmented reality, and all these things happening, I think the potential is immense. So we could be in a very simple school chem lab in a school in Africa, and with augmented reality, with just a cheap mobile device, we will probably experience, like, I don't know, explosions and experiments that would only have been achievable in a very expensive lab of a very rich country. So I think the potential is immense. What we have, however, to master is the way to learn. I think it was Alvin Toffler, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that mentioned that the illiterate person in the 21st century will not be the one who cannot read or write, but the person who will not be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And we see how fast knowledge changes and becomes obsolete in every scientific field and in every professional field. A few years ago, there were like studies that mentioned that a person in its lifetime will probably in his or her lifetime, will probably have to switch careers 8 times. I think we will be lucky if we change careers 8 times in the next decade, because things are moving very fast. So, I think that learning is probably the only superpower that we possess as humans. At least the majority of us. I don't know, probably there are other people who have other superpowers, but being able to learn and master these metacognitive abilities, to be able to acquire new skills and apply them in the optimal setting, will be the most sought after skill in the next few years. And educational technology here by our side, along with tech, can provide us with immense capability for improving ourselves, improving our condition, improving our skills, and improving our societies in general.
I remember the early days of using an LMS to take courses in a corporate setting, and the experience was awful. The content was it was static, it was flat, it all just felt like a compliance exercise. And you mentioned like 15% course completion rates. I imagine that applies to a lot of corporate kind of bland training. And now you're talking about AR and VR and self-paced adaptive learning. Talk about some of the other ways that potentially the future of e-learning could actually make not just the old LMS experience better, but potentially it could even be better than classroom learning.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're not here to replace classrooms. We're here to enhance them. But I definitely share everything you mean. LMSs mostly deal with the management of learning, not with the learning itself. So probably an LMS is there to keep HR happy, so that they have their records. They get a checkbox. 15 in a corporate setting like 15% is even high, but obviously for compliance reasons, you are obliged or you are bludgeoned, to go out and complete this course in one month in order to qualify for something. So yes, LMSs are very are like with they haven't been able to adapt to the kind of experiences that we have in other aspects of our life. So you have a person, especially let's say a millennial, who are used to playing with their iPads and their tablets and their mobile gaming devices with very immersive, interactive, fast-paced experience. You cannot just give them a 50-minute video recording that they have to complete. It's like it's impossible. So you have to create bite-sized content. You have to give them super engaging experiences. You have to make this interactive. You have to make this immersive. You have to make this social. Nobody learns on their own. It's learning is a social endeavor. So you can enable all these social capacities there, facilities, and even invite user generated content, because it's not just like a broadcast. We will give you this 1 hour video, you have to memorize it. We don't learn this way. So what we're trying to do with LearnWorlds is to create worlds of learning that will emulate as much as possible, and I'm not talking about any AI or VR technique, but we try to emulate the way that we learn in the actual life, where we interact with the content, interact with the instructor, we interact with our peers, ask questions, receive answers. This is much more natural. We get access to the actual resources that we would use in a physical setting, because it's not just to get a textbook, but it's also to see how something is happening, to experience how an actual expert is doing it, to get access to news about a specific subject, because it's not just learning about what a digital marketer does on a day, but it's also about who are the influencers in this space, who are the best people to follow around, who are the people I should try to learn about more and be more immersed in this space. So this is what we are trying to the kind of resources we're trying to give to our creators. And here, when somebody is selling online courses, and more, this also happens in a corporate setting. You cannot just force people to go through the course. You have to make it engaging for them, especially if you're selling something and somebody buys your course and they pay $100, $300, $500. You cannot, you will not survive as a business if you just give them a boring course. They will never come back. They will be super satisfied. And even in a corporate setting, a millennial that gets this kind of course, he will start looking for another business. So even there, we have to find ways to keep making content engaging, attractive, interactive as much as possible, bite-sized, include all these social abilities in there and the opportunity for interaction, leisure, understanding the field. And this will be much closer to the way. So we have to learn the way we will eventually apply this knowledge. So this we try to bring those two much closer, and this is why the platform, I guess, resonates with all those people, especially when we are talking about a practical subject where you have to also gain some skills. It's not just about reading or theory. It could be photography, like going out, taking a few photos, coming back, uploading your photos and getting feedback from your peers. This can be an amazing learning opportunity. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to involve AI or VR. This could also provide, I can imagine, some amazing scenarios created around these technologies. But even with more basic technologies that we have at our disposal, we can enhance so much the learning experience and have so much more happy students and happy course creators and sellers from the other end.
So during the pandemic, Zoom can take credit for introducing probably, literally a billion or more people to the benefits of online learning. But then, it occurs to me that there's a lot of Zoom fatigue now. And I wonder, while I'm sure LearnWorlds got a kind of a tailwind from that increased exposure to technologies like Zoom, to what extent do you have to mitigate the impact of kind of a headwind from this, this kind of fatigue?
Yes, definitely there was fatigue. I guess it was fatigue towards everything that we were forced to do. It's not just Zoom, but all the other things that we were forced to do, from masks or whatever. They definitely create some strange connotations and bring back some memories. For us, it was very experienced because partly working with Zoom or alongside Zoom, we managed to. So the first few months after the pandemic, it was an emergency situation and everybody was trying to cope. So we managed to help ourselves, either the platform alone or along with a tool like Zoom. We managed to help people stay afloat. And so imagine a yoga studio, a math teacher, somebody who was offering digital marketing courses to corporates. Effectively, they shut down. They had no way of reaching their students, their audiences, no way to make revenue. So by either in a makeshift way, by using Skype, Zoom, Teams, whatever one had available, or by using a platform like us, who could orchestrate these things, because in LearnWorlds you can just plug and play your Zoom account and you can start offering live courses. So we were able to help people. I don't know, a yoga studio. We had some people who started selling live classes in a day. They had no option before that, and they started teaching in one day. They launched the school, customized the page. They created a simple video, a welcome video, put in a price on their Zoom classes, and they started making money in no time. Now, obviously, people like students are a bit fed up of this scenario. However, the creators themselves have experienced the potential of scaling if they turn to self-paced courses. Because if you're an educator and you have, I don't know, a training business, you train people, you do seminars, or you go to businesses and teach like in a seminar setting, how many hours can you teach per week? Like 30, 40? How many people can you reach? Even if you fly, you have the people in your vicinity, in your area. So we've seen this transition. It was amazing realization for several of those people who started for an emergency situation, but then they discovered, okay, I can create a much more polished version of this class, or I can just record my Zoom and re-upload it, and I can start selling it 24/7 to a global audience. And so suddenly, a big light bulb moment and a realization that the business model lies here. So it might not be the perfect setting for all students, but having access to amazing content anywhere, anytime is a huge advantage. So this is where we try to calibrate expectations from both ends, both from the side of the creator and the course seller, but also from the side of the student. Manage expectations and say that, okay, it might not be optimal. It might not be the same thing as being in a classroom with an amazing professor. But can we get 70% of the value at 10% of the cost, with 300% of the ease of use, accessibility, and like freedom to use it anywhere, anytime? So this is the kind of equation that we're trying to create, and it's a winning equation. It's it's an equation that is super positive for both ends, both for the creators who manage to address a global audience and sell their content, but also for students who get access to amazing content, everything that they imagined to learn from anywhere, anytime, from some amazing course creators out there, and they get access to great skills. And especially now, coming out of the pandemic, where all of us have to relearn things, be reskilled, retooled for an economy that is still rebuilding itself. This is so going more towards the lifelong learning necessity. This is where tools like that can help businesses on a massive scale. So I cannot, despite the Zoom fatigue, everybody wants to go back into a setting, into a conference, shake hands, mingle. I understand that, but I also understand that if a company gets 100 employees who they want to train and put them into a conference room for 5 hours of PowerPoint, I think there will be a riot. Putting them into an LMS with boring 15-minute videos, again, it will be a disaster. So can we give them something better today? Can we help businesses today reach their audiences, reach their customers educate their customers. Education is the best form of marketing that somebody can offer out there. Train your employees, but also sell online courses, sell the content you have to the audience that you have created, and make some money on top. This is the I guess the value proposition that we bring onto the table.
Panos, I got to get you off the hot seat, but not without answering one last question. So, polish your crystal ball. Look, say, 20 or 30 years into the future. Will it be the case that the learning experience is a online or digital first experience supplemented by potentially a classroom? In other words, invert the current paradigm, or is that beyond 20 years out?
I think it could even be closer to that. So definitely, let's say the top 5% or the elite situations, there will always be a more up close, immersive experience for them in a well protected. I don't know whether it's going to be Ivy League or other kind of super premium experience, but I think the rest, several billions of people, will probably have on a massive scale access to top quality content through experiences like that. So imagine more than 1 billion people in Africa, the majority of them under 18 years. What kind of education potential exists for them? So I think, and even in the top settings, we follow trends. We see the issue of student debt. Companies are people increasingly going to get their education through the traditional educational academic system, or will they try to get micro credentials or the right amount of skills that are needed for them to apply immediate in a professional setting? I mean, we come out of university, we value immensely the traditional educational paradigm and doing your studies and everything, and getting all the fundamentals right. But after, let's say, you complete your degree, how you keep up with the knowledge? I think increasingly there in universities, even today, are doing that in an even bigger scale. They go out of so you get your degree, but then you get constant refills of micro degrees that teach you the right skills you need to apply at the right time at the right job as you move through your career. So I think we're gonna get much more on that, and much less, or distributed in smaller chunks of time, of the actual physical one-on-one educational setting that we were used to. So digitization, I think, affects education the same way as it affects banking, commerce, or any other service. This is a trend that we've seen overall. It's probably the more human-centric, but even there we see educational technology making huge inroads.
Each of these topics is itself a topic for a whole podcast, and maybe if I could, I'll ask you to come back again, and we'll continue this conversation.
I enjoyed the conversation immensely, and as you mentioned, each topic it opens up lots of possibilities.
It's fascinating. It couldn't be more germane to the topic of this podcast is the future of work, and this is it. We're talking about you can't disconnect the future of learning from the future of work. So just fascinating discussion.
Great. It was great, Dan. Your questions really touched upon the really the most important aspects. Lots of food for thought for me as we wrap up this podcast.
I'm sure a lot of the listeners would like to know where they can learn more about the research behind LearnWorlds and or the company. What would you share with them?
Just go to our website, www.learnworlds.com. We have a very frictionless software. You can just start a free trial and start experimenting. Also there, you might find pointers to our CVs and some of the research that we've done over the years. But it's not about the research. It's about giving you a super user-friendly platform that you can just use right away. Go out, start selling a few courses. Everybody knows something that somebody else wishes to learn, and this is a great opportunity for a business model and a business.
Panos, we are all rooting for you to succeed. All the best, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. It was great being on your show.
Well, this is your host, Dan Turchin, signing off for this week, but back next week with another fascinating guest.